So are you surprised to hear that he doesn't intend to coach in 2026?
Yeah,
Gerry?
and that's what Art Rooney said today, that he it doesn't appear that he has any intention in the near future of coaching again. I didn't hear that from him. It's not that I dispute what Art II had to say. But I, if you ask me, even before what Art Rooney said, would he be back coaching? In some form, yes. I saw Bill Cowher go through this, but it was different with Bill because initially his dispute with the Steelers was about money, and then that wasn't it at all. And he just reached a point where, he felt like it was time to step down, that he had had enough. And, that came just one full season after a Super Bowl. And people thought he would go back to coaching, and he never really did, as you saw. And I don't think he was willing to talk to some people, but I don't think he ever had the inclination to go back. I just think Mike Tomlin will. I could be wrong. He's never told me that, of course. But if he sits out for a couple of years, maybe he won't. I would have to, if I were a betting man, I would say he would probably be back in the NFL in some amount of time, whatever that is.
And then, the word is that he already has a media offer in his back pocket. That wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. It would just be interesting to me to see him sitting suited and booted on a set, providing outside noise, Gerry. That's essentially it. And that's why I kind of find it hard to believe that there isn't somebody trying to kick a tire on Mike Tomlin today to say, are you sure you don't want to coach this year? And because there are some compelling opportunities that are out there for him to jump on. That said, there are some compensation requirements now that need to be met for the Steelers. Any sense of how the Steelers, I know this is so early, but any sense of how the Steelers would view compensation for Mike Tomlin, Gerry?
Yeah, Rich, I don't know what that answer would be in terms of how much, but let's face it, you saw what other coaches commanded in terms of return compensation, and it would be at least that for Mike Tomlin, who would be even in more demand than any of those other coaches who received, who went out and were, quote, traded or sold to another team. Rich, you used the word interesting. By that, did you mean odd or curious to see Mike Tomlin in an announcing role? Because I don't. And I know from the other side, they would probably love to have him. I've never had any indication from him or the people around him that he would want to do that. So, no, I can't see him doing that. And I'm sure other teams will knock on his door, if not his agent's door, to say exactly what you said. Did you want to stay away for a short amount of time, a year or whatever? Or would you consider coming to our team? And so, I'm sure that will happen.
Yeah, and again, in the same way that Cowher, after he left, did rule over coaching carousel cycles for a few years, that will absolutely be Tomlin if he certainly is also in the public eye during the 2026 season. First order of business, Gerry. I mean, the draft is in Pittsburgh in April. I'm sure my network, I'm sure ESPN, I'm sure anybody will be knocking on Tomlin's door and say, do you want to be part of the paparazzi talking about a draft in Pittsburgh? It makes complete sense that he will start to be in the public eye if that's what he wants. And he will then lord over any coaching process with him sitting out there for sure.
Rich, I've never thought that Mike Tomlin was concerned about or was enamored with being in the public eye. Now, I can't speak, I can't speak to his ego or anything like that, but I've never had that sense that he's worried about being front and center. But you're right. I mean, it would be great for television. It would be great theater, no question. But I just don't see him wanting to do that right away. I think would be more willing to sit back and think, okay, do I want to go forward again this year, or do I want to wait? And of course, the big thing first, the Steelers and naturally their fan base, what would they get in return? I love this notion that people are showing that clip of Steve Bisciotti The Ravens
Yep.
coach raising his eyebrows when it was mentioned that Mike Tomlin stepped down. I remember Bill Cowher telling me, obviously years ago, that the one place he wouldn't go coach, despite what everybody in Cleveland thought, was that he would go be the coach of the Browns. And he said, even though he played there and coached there, he would never do that because he wouldn't do that to Pittsburgh. He wouldn't do that to the Rooney family. And I would be willing to bet everything I got. And as you know, Rich, that's countless thousands of millions of dollars he would never go. He would never go to Baltimore.
Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.